inspection end of things and how that has changed and what has changed recently. And Allison, I think we can take the screen share off if we want to at this point as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. 13 people, that's a lot. I'm pretty excited about this, especially for our first one. So things are changing constantly. We're trying to keep everyone posted. I know that your brokers and you all have lots of access to exactly what's going on in Michigan right now, what you're allowed to do as agents and what us affiliates are allowed to do. So I think it's awesome. And one of the things I love about our board is that we share information with each other, which is also really awesome. So the most recent update for us as home inspectors are we can still do home inspections, which is wonderful, but it must only be with clients under contract to purchase. Over the weekend, we decided as a company that we were going to, really put out there that we can still do pre-listing inspections. We were also going to offer some other things that we can do for you. And then very quickly, I was told, nope, no more pre-listing. So things are changing all the time. So with those with being able to go into houses now as home inspectors, we are also allowed to have clients there now, which is huge. Because most home inspection companies really want their clients there to show them about the house. And right now, with you guys not being able to show homes or be in the house at all, a lot of your clients are buying their house sight unseen. So the home inspection is really their opportunity to be able to see everything about the house, and we want them there. Of course, we all have to practice social distancing. So gloves and masks are still worn. We as home inspectors still need to sanitize everything before we leave, and hopefully most of the home inspection companies here are actually doing that. Again, we are a community who are trying to get this job done together. So if anything changes or if anyone has anything to add or take away from what I'm currently saying, I trust y'all to tell me.
I know some home inspection companies are charging a little bit more and wearing Tyvek gear and then disposing of it, like using everything as a one-time use. Is that something you're doing?
As far as we know, that's unnecessary. For one thing, we're not charging more at all. I think that should be a question when looking for home inspectors. I'm going to try and stay non-biased as possible. So as a home inspection company, I don't believe that we should take advantage of a situation. I think that we should offer service in a time of need. People still need to get into their homes, and people still need to know whether or not they are safe. With that being said, it is our job, no matter the season or what's going on in the world, to make sure that everyone is safe and to follow the law. So if we need to wear proper protective gear and sanitize after, that's what we need to be doing. A full Tyvek suit is not going to protect anyone from getting coronavirus. Clothes don't hold a virus for as long as we are in a house. So whether we're going from house to house, nothing is going to come off of our clothes and into the home. That's not how the virus works. One of the reasons that we sanitize surfaces is because things like door handles and metal faucet fixtures will hold the virus for so long. So we need to go through and wipe those surfaces. Now, with that being said, we're wearing rubber gloves as well. We are throwing them away before we even touch our own vehicle after we perform the inspection. And then when we get to the next house, we have to put on new gloves. We have to make sure our mask is clean. But again, that's fabric. That's really only, and a mask does not prevent anyone from getting the virus. It prevents us from coughing or allowing anything from our own mouths to get out, especially now that we are allowed to have clients come to the inspection. One of the reasons that we wear another mask is also to allow each other to feel comfortable, even though we are 6 feet away. So a full Tyvek suit is unnecessary unless there's a protocol out there that someone reads that says, hey, this is really helpful. We don't see that it's helpful. So no, but both answers. No, we are not charging more as our company. So I'm just curious to those who are. And then also, we are wearing the proper protective gear as suggested. Yeah, great question. Awesome. One of the other things that we learned in this update just this past weekend is that home inspectors are allowed then to return to the property for a second time for a confirmation inspection. So one of the things that we were considering in our own company is a second confirmation inspection. We would absolutely consider that a re-inspection, which is something that we do anyway. Were the GFIs replaced? We're going there to confirm that they surely were. Something I would like to have discussion about with you all, though, is could that also be a confirming, like a final walkthrough? Is it confirming then that the house is still in a safe condition, thus allowing the client to return as well before closing? That's something that I really want to pick realtors' brains on, and brokers, and of course our board, to see if that is something that would be an acceptable interpretation. I wonder. Just thoughts out loud. Anyone? And I can't see hands raised. That's Allison. So.
I would certainly think that walkthrough would classify as a final walkthrough, as long as the purchaser was with you. If I was you, just from a risk reduction standpoint, I would never do a final walkthrough on a house and without the purchaser. Question, and this is probably nothing we're going to resolve or solve now, is because the cities are not doing their C of O inspections, the onus ends up either in negotiations, you're doing an escrow set aside. Sorry, Christopher's children are here. But an escrow holdback, or are you looking at those things that cities would normally hit, I guess is the question.
Yeah, there's a piece of communication that we need to make sure we have with the cities. So if a certificate of occupancy is still necessary, that's one thing that we need to have discussion about, is has that list changed at all, and how can we provide that list for purchasers? I think that's a great question. That's a great question. I will look into that.
Hey, Jamie.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned about going back to do a re-inspection. I've never had any inspector that did that. Usually we've done it through the final walkthrough to make sure things were done. So if your company does that, then do you also charge for a re-inspection?
For re-inspection, we typically charge $95. We have for 10 years. But that's just to go through a list. If a purchaser says, okay, we want these things done, and your inspection response, and then a homeowner says, okay, we've done those things, here are the receipts for the professionals. If you guys feel comfortable with that, then great. But every once in a while, not too many, but every once in a while, we have a client who says, can you please go back and make sure they did what they said they did? In that case, we charge a small fee to do that. Because of coronavirus, we're not charging for a second visit at all. For instance, this morning I did a home inspection and we were unable to go in the crawl space. They just had too much stuff in front of the opening. We're not going to move a ton of people's personal belongings. So I said, you know what? We are allowed during the season to come back a second time anyway. We're not charging to go along to, if it is agreed upon and it would be helpful for us to go and do the final walkthrough. We're not going to charge for that, especially if we are the one that did the home inspection. But even if not, we're not going to charge to do a final walkthrough. So we thought, let's not charge for a re-inspection either during this time. Why not?
Well, thanks.
All the help we can get, yeah. And of course, we would want the client to be there, because if they're allowed to go a second time, then why not? One of you said, Anne Marie, I think, said about liability as well. Yeah, let's make sure that the purchaser is with us on that second time back too. Yeah, for sure.
Great, thanks.
I know Bob has joined us, so maybe Bob can add to that question relative to C of O. I know it was only yesterday, Bob. Did we get an updated C of O?
I have, am I muted? I have not seen the information from Michelle, who was going to get it to it. That was what we were waiting for. And I'm going to make an observation that as much as we can probably find ways to mentally justify doing any number of things, I would always suggest that business owners check with legal counsel before they proceed regarding anything that could get them in trouble. One of the things that's in this problem, and the golf courses are perhaps the most intriguing of all of them, is that while the golf course has to be closed, there is nothing illegal about playing golf. And you just can't have a golf course. You just can't be open as a golf course or as a golf club. But if somebody wants to come and put on their shoes and walk the course, you can't give them a cart, but they can play 18 holes if they want. So there's some interesting, there's always some interesting ways of dealing with things. I did have some conversation with people at Michigan Realtors who had commented that whether or not a buyer wants to go through a home while there's a home inspection is something that the buyer needs to discuss with their attorney, because in theory, that may not be something that's allowable. But in practice, it's all a matter of whether or not the cops are going to stop you in the first place. So there's all sorts of stuff. I'm just reluctant to have us say, yeah, this is cool, that's cool. I think at the end of the day, as a real estate practitioner, run it by your broker, have your broker run it by legal counsel, and proceed as advised. I know that if I were experiencing this as you are, I would be finding every way I could bend the rule and operate in that gray area that I could.
That makes sense to me. I'm trying really hard as a business owner and also as someone with a voice in the affiliate committee and also a voice for home inspectors. I do not want to operate in gray areas or even try to bend the rules. I know that there is openings to do so. But man, I just would like to have money to pay for groceries. I don't need to pay a fine.
No, and the fines aren't cheap, so I understand. Yeah, no, I agree. But I think everybody has to proceed. Has to proceed as they wish. Yeah.
So with that being said, for home inspection, and that's all with just home inspection as a whole, like our industry as a whole. With our particular company, of course, there's a few things that we're doing in-house that we've always done. We're just making it more known. So give us a call if you have questions about those specifics. But for affiliates and home inspection wide, those are the recent changes that clients are allowed to come now, and we are no longer allowed to do pre-listing inspections. It must be buyers under contract.
Yep, I heard that. Okay.
That's it for me.
All right. We'll circle back for questions and answers at the end. So Peter Churko with Churko Title, if you'd like to step in now and give us a little update on what's changed and what's currently allowed and not allowed in the title world.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. There is a lot going on, as Jamie said. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. There's a lot going on. As Jamie said, it's changing often. It's almost minute by minute these days with how often it's changing. But the two biggest things going on right now is the majority of it is about limiting exposure and limiting the number of people coming in. And so a lot of the title agents, us included, have shut our office down to outsiders and have switched to curbside closings so that the clients can drive up, call the office, and the closer comes out with a clipboard and a pen, and you guys can sign. They can sign right there in their car and be never have to come into the office, never have to be in contact with anyone other than grabbing a clipboard from them. The other thing that just happened, I want to say it was Monday, might have been a little after that. was they have now allowed what's called an audio-visual notary. So there's been a lot of talk about remote online notarization and these e-notaries. That did pass back in January. The problem is the Register of Deeds have not been accepting them. So we have not been able to do these remote notaries or these e-closings like we've wanted to. And so we've been trying to get to that point. And so in the meantime, what they've done is they've authorized these audiovisual notaries. And what they do is they set up a video conference room like this, and it's password protected. The client is the only one that has the password to get in. They log in, we ship them the papers overnight, and they have the physical papers in front of them. They wet sign it with a notary on the other end, watching them do it, listening to them doing it, asking any questions. And so the closing is taking place on paper, but through the internet. And so once they sign everything, they ship it back to us overnight, and then we notarize it for the day before. And so the governor's most recent executive order allowed that to happen. We have confirmed with Macomb County that they will accept it. We are still working on getting confirmation from the other counties. Whether or not they'll accept it, I think it's going to be accepted just because the executive order kind of forced them. It's just a matter of getting that 100%, yes, we can do it. And all the underwriters have reached out to us and let us know, yes, they are allowing it. They are insuring it as long as the county sign off. And then obviously, if there's a mortgage involved, we need the lenders to sign off that they're okay with it. The big thing with it is the notary block is going to have an extra line saying that it was done through an audiovisual notary in accordance with the executive order. There's been some lenders that are a little leery of that just because of the secondary market and the investors not liking it. But I have heard that Fannie and Freddie both have said it's not a problem. They will buy those loans with that notary on there. And so we're starting to see some banks and different lenders okaying that. Those are kind of the big changes going on right now with title.
Is your expectation everything that's being set up now is going to continue and sort of be part of the standard of how we operate?
I will say some of it yes, some of it no. I think this audio-visual notary thing, that's going to go away. Right now, it's only approved through the end of the month. I fully expect it to be extended at least halfway through May, if not the whole month of May. But right now, it's only through the 30th. But I think that eventually, when the remote online notarization takes off, there won't really be a need for it because then you can just notarize it electronically and make it a lot easier. This was just kind of a stepping stone that the problem is when you do an online notarization, you have to e-record those documents. They cannot be printed and then mailed in because once you print it, it's no longer original. But if you e-record it and if you e-sign it and e-record it, it's considered original. Not every county in Michigan e-records. Obviously, Metro Detroit, everyone e-records. It's very easy to do. But when we're looking at large scale, the whole state, a lot of the smaller counties don't have e-recording. And so because of that, the Register of Deeds have come out and basically said, we're not going to accept it until everyone can accept it. And so they're waiting for the whole state to get on board. So this audio-visual thing is just kind of a, hey, if we can't do that, let's at least do something. And so that's kind of how they're doing that. I fully expect I'm hoping by the end of the month, they will get on board with the remote online notarization. That will be here to stay. That did pass before the coronavirus stuff happened. It's been in the works for many years. And so I think that's going to become part of the norm. You're going to see in-person e-notarization where you're signing either on a tablet or a touchscreen computer in the closing room, or these remote closings where we're closing in the secure portal online. I do think that is going to be the future of how we operate. And so we'll just got to kind of see what happens.
Peter?
Yes, sir.
Bob Taylor. Things that have stalled the development of blockchain within the title recording process has been the inability of county clerk's offices to e-record. As more and more do e-recording, it would seem to me that stumbling block comes off. Is the title industry in general aware of or even touching a little bit on the issue of, on the topic of blockchain?
Yeah, they are. I will say it's more on the underwriting level that they're doing that. The biggest application that I can see for blockchain is exactly what you said. It's getting the register of deeds set up through the blockchain. And what that does is it makes it a lot easier for title agents to search the property and to get those records. It's all in one location, easily sourced. You don't have to go through these third-party vendors or order documents from the county to be sent to you. Everything is going to be right there at your fingertips. So it should make the title search quicker and easier and more efficient. The e-recording is the big thing. The other thing is all of the older information. And so to be able to truly do this, we would need everything that's been recorded over the past 40 years to be backed up electronically. And so that's another big hurdle, because the standard for title insurance is to search 40 years. So if you don't have a 40-year chain electronically, the blockchain really doesn't help unless there's a policy in between. Excuse me.
And so for those of you who may not be familiar, what blockchain would likely do is seriously reduce the ability to file a fraudulent deed. If nothing else, that would be a huge benefit to consumers, and I think it might also be of value to title insurance companies.
Absolutely.
Peter, it's Ian Marie. I've got a question. While we are on sort of, minimized servicing, is there any room, I don't know what you would call it, but I call them an Eagle policy. Is there any more need, room, desire, ability to do Eagle policies to insure over and above and additional things that may or may not be able to be verified?
Yeah, I mean, those policies are always available. The Eagle policy is the first American name for it. The standard, the Alta homeowners policy is the more general name that you can get through any of the underwriters. It is a great product. It has a lot of things that you can, not only insuring the past and like your normal title insurance, there's also some future things that you can insure. Whether or not it would be helpful with the coronavirus stuff, I would have to go through it again. There's a lot of stuff in the Eagle policy, so I apologize. I don't know everything off the top of my head. But I'd have to go through it to really look into how it would help in this situation, but it definitely has the ability to help. It is a nice product for a minimal cost. It is a nice thing for the homeowners. On top of that, there are new gap coverages right now because of the coronavirus. There's a gap addendum that we're putting on and affidavits that we're having the seller sign, attesting that nothing has been done during the pandemic, because some of these register of deeds are either shut down or on very limited staff. And so the indexing of recorded documents is lagging. And so we might be looking at what's been recorded a month out. And so for the last month, we don't really know what's happened on that property. So we're having the seller sign more disclosures, attesting that nothing's been done, that they didn't change anything, they didn't deed it, they didn't put out a lien or anything like that. And it's just extra coverage, covers us, covers the buyer, just to make sure that everything's good.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. And again, we'll circle back and we'll have some time at the end for Q&A from Peter. So thank you for your update. Next, I'm going to bring Don Precor with Fifth Third on to give us an update on the mortgage end from the bank perspective. We have 3 different lenders, all occupying different areas of lending. So we're going to get a nice spread of the industry as a whole. So Don, if you want to jump on and give us the bank perspective.
Safe and healthy right now. Obviously, over the last 30 days, it's been, and sorry, my video camera is not working, so you're just hearing me. But obviously, over the last 30 days, there's been a lot of change in the mortgage industry. with the COVID-19. I will tell you, many of the lenders are following the executive orders that the governor has instituted, where we're seeing a lot more of the sales staff working from home. Most of the lenders still have offices and are essential workers, so they are able to get to work, but obviously trying to do the distancing social aspects. What we've seen over the last couple of weeks is mortgage rates are starting to be a little bit more stabilized. That is really helping with rates. Early on, there was a lot of volatility with the mortgage rates. With the Fed coming in and buying a lot of the treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, I think that settled a lot down, where rates are not having so many inter-day pricing changes. I will tell you, a lot of the lenders, including Fifth Third, have adopted the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac letters issued in late March, which include the appraisal reliefs and the most recent changes on guidance with income and assets, where before we required that it could be 120 days. Now we have to get documentation within 60 days. The credit report is still good for 120 days. So it's very fluid. We're continuing to see Fannie and Freddie come up with changes daily almost, and all the lenders, including the banks, are adapting to those so that it can be a lot more flexible. I'll tell you, one of the significant changes is probably in the appraisal process. Most lenders now have adopted the relief from Fannie and Freddie with regards to appraisals, where if it's a purchase transaction and it's less than 97% LTV, you're going to be able to allow to have just a drive-by or a desktop appraisal. We're starting to see a lot of customers concerned about having appraisers coming into the homes, so that is becoming a lot more flexible for clients, where now no longer the appraiser has to go and inspect the property. It can do a drive-by. Obviously, on a purchase transaction, if the buyer still wants the inspection done that way, they still can require full appraisal. I want to touch probably one of the other pieces. It's more on the, not so much on the selling and the purchase side, but more on with regards to hardships. A lot of people have heard that with the CARE Act that came in play a couple of weeks ago, that many customers now can have an opportunity, if they have an existing mortgage, where they can request to have up to 180 days, what they call forbearance, which is a defer but not a forgiven of their mortgage payments. This is allowed not only through conventional loans from Fannie and Freddie, but really pretty much every product, including the portfolio side, which a lot of lenders, including banks, are adopting. So there's a lot of advantages to that for customers, but with this hardship, it is causing some stress in some lenders, because when a person does require the hardship, there's no proof that they have to show, except that it's related to COVID-19, that this does put a little bit of stress on the capital and liquidity on some lenders, because now the servicer is required to make those payments and any tax payments if there's escrow being collected. So that is becoming somewhat of a challenge as more and more people are looking for alternatives of trying to defer some of their payments. The advantage with most lenders will allow you a couple of different options after the 180 days, where the person can choose either make a full payment of all those deferred payments after the forbearance period expired, or they can agree to a repayment plan, or the third is they can work out and structure with that servicer a modification and take those payments that were deferred and put them on the back end. So again, I think the lenders are all participating and assisting homeowners in this aspect. And in addition, on the purchase side, we as all lenders want to continue to take care of your purchase customers. We're in the business to do them, and we're still hitting, I would say most lenders are always hitting the contract prices of those transactions. So I'll pause for if anybody had some questions, or Chris, you want to jump in?
Here, what we'll do is because we have three different lenders, we'll let all three of us go, and then we'll circle up with any questions. So if you write them down or put them in the chat, we'll make sure we get to them. So Jason Coletta from Hill Mortgage, if you want to take yourself off mute and jump in here, Jason's going to show us from the and update us from the mortgage broker end of things. Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's it's kind of the same, guys. I think the longer we go into this, the more I'm realizing the silver linings that are coming out of this. With the appraisal process, and Jamie was alluding earlier to the home inspection, is I think a lot of these, probably not the appraisal, but some of these are going to move forward. I think these are going to be everyday process. I think Anne-Marie were asking earlier. The appraisals probably not, but we've gotten a couple of appraisals where actually 2 in the past week. One client wanted the appraisal. They wanted the appraiser in the house. The other one did it. The one obviously that didn't want the appraiser in the house came back quicker. I think I'm trying to stay positive, and for everybody, for all aspects of this, it's going to be there's going to be some good things that come out of this. Just a different way of us looking at it, and as always, adapting. But on the broker end, the lenders, it's all the same. Pete, you were saying earlier about the title, because I've asked that a couple of times, and the biggest hang up about the I forgot what they're called, the e-closings or the window closings, whatever they're called. Some lenders haven't signed off on it yet, and it's because of the secondary market. But I don't know. I guess it's kind of all I did say was we're adjusting with everything else, but the market's still there. It's slower, but we can still get everything done. It's just a different way of doing it, but it'll get done. And with all these different companies or different corners of the business coming together, it's still working. I think this is the 3rd or 4th Zoom I've done in the past 3 days, and I think all in all, positivity. I hope everybody else is feeling the same way, or seeing some silver lining out of it. I guess that's really all I had, Chris. I didn't want to, open it up. Back to you.
Yeah, I'll touch on a couple of different things here real quick. From a mortgage perspective, one thing that I know we're seeing, and for those who don't know, we're a correspondent lender, so we're lending our money at the table using our warehouse line and then selling after. So whereas Don with the bank, they're truly lending their own money. Jason has the investor already lined up on the mortgage. We're going to figure out who that servicer is and the investor on the loan after closing. So there's different approaches to the same result. So, but with that, what we're looking at is seeing a lot of the investors are wanting the verification of employment that used to be the documentation couldn't be more than 10 days old at the day of closing. A lot of the investors are now wanting that to be 2 days prior to, or 3 at the absolute max. Some are even requiring day of. It's now part of their funding instructions is we need at least a verbal verification of employment that day. So that can present its own unique challenge as everybody's working from home now. So getting a hold of somebody's HR department might be a little bit more difficult. So it's something that if you have your clients ready for, I know I'm including it in my instructions. I know Jason and Don are, because we've had conversations, but if you want to have your borrowers and your buyers be ready as well, hey, they're going to need to do a verification of employment. Try to figure out who that is. One thing that we've run into a lot is some of the bigger companies, Ford, GM, Chrysler, these big companies who don't traditionally actually do their verification of employment verbally. They use a third-party service like The Work Number. That only works if that date that they updated is within those 3 days. So it can be much more challenging than it was in the past. So that's something that we definitely want to be aware of as well. Circling back to the forbearance for a moment, the example that we're using all the time is you may wind up having, let's say you have $1,000 principal and interest payment. In month 4, you now have to make up that $3,000 plus your $1,000 plus your taxes and insurance. So you could wind up needing to have a large chunk of change, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, depending on your taxes and insurance, all at once. And if you've just had 2 or 3 months off of work, that's not necessarily an ideal time to have to come up with a large chunk of money like that. One thing that has come up is as clients start to get their stimulus check or their unemployment, we can't necessarily use those things as qualified income, but we can, from a mortgage perspective, use those as assets. So funds to close and things like that, that's what those can be used for if they're still in a position where, let's say somebody's furloughed for a while and they want to build up their savings. Those are things that we can use, but we can't use them as income moving forward. So beyond that, obviously we're doing everything that we can to stay busy, to keep you guys informed throughout the entire process. Refinances are a big step right now. It's the majority of most of our pipelines right now as lenders. And it's another avenue that you can reach out to your clients and stay busy, is introduce that as an option to provide some relief as well. So they'll skip that month of mortgage payment. They'll get an escrow refund if they have one. So that's a way of putting a little bit of cash in their hands, along with saving them some monthly money, maybe even consolidating debt. So at this point, I'll open it up. Jason, Don, if you guys want to come off mute, and we can all be available for any mortgage questions that you have.
I've got a question. I'm not certain I know exactly how applicable it is. I've got a call on Monday with some people at United Wholesale. I want to get a sense from them of what's happening in the secondary and in the wholesale market. Is there information in particular that would be of value for you guys to learn? I would think, with being the largest wholesaler in the country, that whatever is being experienced in the wholesale market, they're experiencing it in spades. So anything I should be aware of as I have this conversation?
I think, Bob, they are, if there is lenders that were signed up with, United Wholesale is the most conservative right now. They basically, I don't know another way to say it, they basically they're trying to jump in front of everything. So their goal now is to be ahead of it, so they're stronger when this is over. They're I'm trying to nice way, they price themselves out of the market and intentionally. They haven't. I think they're trying to. I don't know the word, just to make sure everything is good in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it's going to be. But from my understanding, he's still Ishbia still on the call, still on. They do a weekly notes, just stating that they're moving forward. But Chris was talking earlier about verification employments. They're doing verification of employments after closing. So if you close, they call. They're going to call to make sure that you still have your job after they close the loan for the funding requirements.
Wow.
So
Okay.
to just kind of give you a sense of where they're at. A lot of the lenders are doing them same day. United Wholesale is doing them. If your closing's at 4 o'clock, they're going to call your boss at 5 o'clock to make sure you still have a job.
Interesting.
That kind of gives you an idea of where they're at. But they're the biggest in the world. They're the biggest in the country. So I think they're trying to pioneer all of this. Just to make sure everything that the market's still there, and when we come out of it, or whenever this ends, I guess we're back to normal, if that's a word. That's the only thing I can think about. It's all the same questions. When's it going to end? When are rates going to bend? Nobody knows. It's just we'll see. It's but what Chris is saying.
The more interesting question that we've started having this discussion among the AEs about what it's going to look like when it's done. And as much as it was all shut down overnight, I don't know that it's going to rebound at that same pace. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. If the feeling of the population resembles those who were up in Lansing protesting yesterday without personal protection equipment or worrying about social distancing, then things could recover very quickly. The question is that's going to remain is how is it going to be impacted by biology and science? Biology and mathematics, I guess, are the two terms that I tend to use for this. So it'll be interesting to see how what it recovers. But those are some of the questions that we're dealing with, or at least starting to face on our side. Any ideas? Peter, you touched.
I'm going to step in. Don, you started to say something while Jason was talking as well.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris. That's okay.
Anything about wholesaling, Don?
Well, you know, the challenge on the wholesale side is, well, Fifth Third got out of wholesale business several years ago. So we're just corresponding and then we're the direct side of it. You know, I've heard they made some much more tighter restrictions than probably maybe the bank side. I would tell you, at least on the Fifth Third Bank focus is we haven't really tightened on any restrictions except some on the jumbo or portfolio products, but everything else is still as run through our automated system through Fannie and Freddie. And we still allow the 10-day verbal. So it's not something we have to do 2 days prior. It's got to be within 10 days.
Okay. Good to know. Any questions from anybody else out there, mortgage related? Okay. We'll open it up to any of our affiliate committee if there's any questions at all for either title, for mortgage, for home inspection, for our AE, or if anybody just wants to jump in and do karaoke. All right, perfect.
I have a question real quick. As far as title companies, this is Suzanne. Hi, everyone. So basically right now it's up to each individual title company as far as how they're handling their closings.
Yeah, everyone can make their own decisions. We are considered essential under the financial services, so we can stay open. We can have the office open. One of the newest executive orders limited the amount of people in a room to 10, I believe. And so that's obviously going to change some closing rooms and all that. I will say for the most part, from everything I'm seeing, most title agents are definitely only allowing signers to come. They're not allowing the lenders or the realtors to come to the closings. And I would say the vast majority have gotten rid of or very limited in-person at the table closings. Usually they're doing the curbside or they're trying to do them electronically. Cash buyers we do through DocuSign so they don't have to come anywhere. So we're trying to limit everyone, but again, it is company to company what measures they're taking.
Okay, thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Allison. It looks like we've got a question from Beth Pressler. So Beth, I'm going to unmute you, or maybe yourself.
Okay, you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Just a quick question about the certificate of occupancies. What do we hear from that? Are title companies, bankers, are you guys concerned about that right now? Because in the points, I know that some of our cities are doing them, some of them aren't. They're requiring the buyers to take care of that. What's the general consensus?
I'll take this from a mortgage perspective. If it's not in the purchase agreement, we default to it's not required. We will only require it if it's in the purchase agreement and spelled out there.
Yeah, I would think that a C of O is a municipal ordinance, and unless it finds its way into the purchase agreement, it would not It would not be a condition of title, nor would it be a condition of lending. Certainly wouldn't be, wouldn't be an issue of inspection by a home inspector. So it's an interesting problem, and it's literally unique to Grosse Pointe. There is one city in all of Macomb County that requires owner-occupied homes at a point of sale to have a C of O. That's Centerline, which is what, 2 square miles? Everything else is new construction or abandoned or vacant or foreclosed. All of those other exceptions. Even Oakland County has only a handful of cities that require it, and I think in Wayne County, other than Grosse Pointe, Harper Woods is the only one that requires it. So it's an interesting problem, and the question may be, when this is over, whether or not we should work more diligently with the municipalities to actually eliminate this requirement.
Okay. I have one right now. I don't know if it matters. I think Peter was mentioning earlier, they're allowing it to do, because there's some repairs to hold it in escrow, to do it after closing, the C of O, some of the repairs. So at least some of that, so it's not getting held up. If you have cement that needs to be done in the winter time, I don't know going forward. But we're all right now that they're going to allow them to do all the repairs after the closing, 30 days, or I don't remember the amount of days, but 30 or 45 days after get stuff done.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know specifically the timeline, but you're right. They are allowing those escrows to cover it. Obviously, it has to be agreed upon between the buyer and seller. Everything goes back to whether or not that buyer is going to be comfortable doing it without the C of O, because they're ultimately the one that's going to be hit with the problem if they don't get it afterwards. And so as long as we sign off on it, and as Chris said, as long as it's not in the PA, we have our ways around it to be able to close those deals.
Okay, because they usually are in our PAs. One way or the other.
Correct. And to protect your buyer, you probably do want it in there. But if it's not in there, then we won't require anything of it. I do see in the comments that Alexis has said they're doing some exterior only inspections in some of the municipalities as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for any of our panel? Allison, do we have any? Yeah, Jason.
Does that sign light up in the back?
Yes, it does.
Nice.
Would it
We don't
be
get to see
anything but?
Another question that came to me privately. It said, it's in the chat now. I'm hearing of temporary C of Os and some title holding escrow for possible repairs, but how are those amounts being determined?
My guess would be dart at the wall.
I would guess negotiations.
Right. It's all down to the negotiations between the buyers and sellers. Anytime we do an escrow agreement, the buyer and seller both have to sign it and be on board with it. And so we can give them suggestions based on what we've seen, but we can't tell them this is what you should hold in escrow. That'd be giving legal advice. And so typically it's between the two of them what they think is necessary.
Anne Marie, it sounded like you had a question as well.
I just, just taking a temperature, and, somebody brought up the people in Lansing yesterday. But, sorry, somebody's here. I don't, and obviously I have personal reasons, Chris's wife and other family members who are healthcare workers. I can't imagine that we'll be able to be back in 14 days to things being normal because we don't have a handle on things. And yet you've got people like the protesters in Lansing yesterday that I just wonder what people are seeing and as a general, like the people that you're dealing with, are people angry about how strict the orders are, and Or are you finding people are accepting it because they're smart? No, I'm just kidding. Because the science is maybe understood.
I'll be honest, I don't know if this is the correct form for that comment and that question.
Okay, I was just
questioning currently.
All right, very good.
Well, I'll share with you one thing, and that is that on March 13th, we decided we were going to close the board office through the end of April. I think it was around May 1st that we decided that it would be closed through May. So we're going to continue to operate as we are, unless it becomes abundantly clear that it is foolish to be staying home, as opposed to the other case. So that's kind of how we look at it. I tell people this is a matter of biology and mathematics, and you can't fix either. They are what they are. We don't know much about this virus. We don't have any idea of whether or not an immunity lasts for any period of time. We have no vaccine. It is conceivable, if it is a short immunity, that you could get it in winter and get it back again in the fall. So, or summer and winter, take your pick. So there's all sorts of unknown about this, and because it is not simple addition but multiplication, operating as conservatively as possible until such time as it is proven otherwise is probably the best way to make sure that we as individuals stay healthy. Now, what that does to our industry, I'm not certain. We are going to do the best we can to continue to deliver as much as we can with the same level of professionalism that we attempt to deliver when we're in person virtually. So that's what I can tell you. We have not canceled. We've canceled some of our June programs. We have not canceled all of our June programs. We have planned, I think, on most everything, if not everything we do in May to be virtual. And we're contemplating whether or not long-term virtual isn't a better way for us to deliver on profitable, productive, and successful. So that has nothing to do with the question. It has nothing to do with what you're talking about as far as the industry is concerned, but that's my perspective of the industry in general, not necessarily from an affiliate perspective.
I'll comment on something too. Well, the government may open things back up and we may get back to operating all businesses again. That doesn't mean that these different guidelines that each company is taking are going to go away. I know for a fact that we have said if by April 30th they open everything back up, we're still going to be taking some precautions. We're still going to be doing curbside closings and trying to do more electronic closings because just because it's open doesn't mean it's gone. And so, yeah, I think you're seeing that across the industry. I know I've talked to some other people in different industries saying the same thing, that even when things open back up, we are still going to be taking these precautions. We're not going to say, oh, we're open, so let's just get rid of all this precaution and just go ahead and go back to business as usual. So you'll see some of this stuff lasting for a little while until we get to a point where it's more comfortable to fully go back to normal.
Perfect. Thank you. And Alexis, I know you had your digital hand up.
I just wanted to build on that. I think that we're going to all get a little bit creative in how we serve our clients, because we're very often a one-on-one business, which is great for the easing back in and the necessity of moving that people have. So I think that we're going to have to, in order to stay working, we're going to have to, accommodate our clients in what their comfort level is with, in terms of, people coming in their house and how these purchase agreements get written. Because, for example, with the C of O, I'm, determining a cost for escrow for an inspection that hadn't taken place, it is a nightmare. but it's kind of just what we will need to sort out. And now whether those, inspections just I think they completely have their place. But if they're suspended for a short time and then they come back, I think we're going to have different restrictions and different specifications with each listing and each deal. So, I think that's the direction where we're going. It's not going to be a light switch.
I agree. Peter, what kind of understanding do you think the membership has about how escrows really work?
I'll say it's all over the board. I think some people know a lot about it and some kind of leave it to us. So it just depends on how much you've really looked into it. But there's a lot of intricacies to escrows, that's for sure.
Beth, did you have another question or hand still up from earlier?
Hold on. Okay. Yeah, just a quick question about the forbearance. I have heard that is a big negative on credit reports. Is that the case?
I'll take this one, guys. So what the federal government has said is that those won't be allowed to impact your credit score. So your score may not see an impact. What we do not yet know is if in the future this will be looked at similar to modifications in the past, or where there may be an overlay put in, or even just certain lenders or investors will say, well, if you went into forbearance, we won't write a mortgage for you for 1 year, 2 years, 18 months, pick any arbitrary number. So it may not impact your credit score per se, but it can impact your credit worthiness or ability to get credit, if that makes sense.
Could impact underwriting guidelines.
Correct.
Thank you.
Or like you said, Chris, if you're able to do, who knows, if you miss the 3 payments, but on the 4th month you have that money and pay all that back, is that negative or is that positive? So it's a great question, but I agree with you. I don't think it's in stone yet.
Yeah, my standard answer whenever anybody has asked about the forbearance is if you are able to make your payment, make your payment. There are too many unknowns at this point for us to be able to say anything other than that with certainty.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. And if you can't make it, call your lender. Don't just not make it. Call and ask for sure.
Yep. The servicer, absolutely. It is there to make sure that there is still a roof over yours and your family's head, and there's still food on your table. So use it if you have to. But if you're those who look at, oh, I can save myself and put money in the bank for the next 3 months, that's not what this program is designed for.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Anybody have any other questions? Good. Well, hopefully this was valuable to everybody. We're going to look at doing these again moving forward, as there are so many changes moving forward. If we all want to jump on here, we'll go in order. Jamie, Peter, Don, Jason, myself, you can provide your contact information and who you're with, so that if there are any individual questions between now and the time that we get together and do this again, anybody that's on this call can feel free to reach out. So Jamie, we'll start with you.
Hey, Jamie, House Call Detroit. My cell is 586-846-0646. And you can find any other information anywhere at House Call Detroit.
Thank you. Peter.
Yep, I'm Peter Turco with Turco Title Agency. My cell phone number is 586-252-4353. And then my email is pjturco@turcotitle.com.
Thank you. Don.
Yes, Don Precor from Fifth Third Bank. Cell phone 248-408-1123. Email address is don.precor, Precor, @53.com.
Thank you. Jason.
Jason Coletta, cell phone 524-0700. And that's JKALETA@hillhomeloans.com.
Thank you. Chris DeRozier with John Adams Mortgage. Cell phone number 313-220-1073. All other information can be found at yourmortgageguychris.com. So, thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy. Have a great evening.
Chris, are we all set to do our recap tomorrow morning?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Thank you very much, Chris. Excellent. Thank you for the
Great job,
participation.
Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Good night.